Are you ready to learn about pathogens in poop? As you may know, water contains lots of microorganisms, or microbes for short. Most of them are important for normal ecosystem function and will not negatively affect your health. But today we are going to focus on those few that can make you sick. These bad microbes can be found in water contaminated with feces. Human feces typically comes in contact with recreational waters through undertreated or untreated wastewater sources. Only about 10% of the world's wastewater is treated, and regardless of treatment, most wastewater makes its way to lakes, rivers, and our oceans. Even though most developed countries treat their wastewater, treatment does not remove all pathogens. Also, the infrastructure used to transport wastewater to correct facilities can fail and cause poor beach or river water quality that can make people sick. Another way waters can be contaminated is with animal poop, either directly or as runoff when it rains. Have you ever seen a sign that told you to clean up dog poop at the park? Why do you think that is? I'll give you a hint. It is not so people won't step on it. Correct. Dog poop is a source of contamination that can get into nearby water. Can you think of other animals that can cause this problem? What about birds, agricultural farms, chickens, cows, and more? But why is poop such an issue? Pathogens. Pathogens are microorganisms that can cause disease. There are three types of pathogens: parasites, bacteria, and viruses. Parasites are organisms that live in or on an organism of another species, its host, and benefit by taking their nutrients at the other's expense. Bacteria are the unicellular microorganisms that have cell walls but lack organelles and an organized nucleus. Some bacteria can cause disease. Viruses are infective agents that typically consist of a nucleic acid molecule in a protein coat and are too small to be seen by light microscopy and are able to multiply only within living host of a cell. Today we'll be focused on pathogens associated with recreational waters, like pools, rivers, lakes, and beaches. Although swimming water can look clean, it may be contaminated with these microbes that can make you sick. Today we'll learn about examples of these pathogens, their sources, exposure routes, prevention, and how scientists test for them. There are many different pathogens associated with wastewater. Here are a few examples of pathogens that commonly make people sick when they swim in contaminated waters. First, let's talk about parasites. Cryptosporidium is a microscopic parasite with a strong outer shell, allowing it to survive outside of the host and in harsh environments for long periods of time, like chlorinated pools. Once ingested by the host, Cryptosporidium lives in the intestines, causing the disease cryptosporidosis, or crypto for short. Crypto is the second major cause of diarrheal disease and death in infants. Giardia is a parasite that lives in its host's intestines. To survive outside the host, it produces cysts that can survive for weeks outside of the body. Giardia causes the disease giardiasis, also called beaver fever, which triggers severe diarrhea, gas, and cramps. Giardia is the third most common agent of diarrheal disease worldwide. Next, let's look at bacteria. Shigella is a highly contagious bacteria group found in fresh and salt water. Shigellosis, the infection caused by Shigella, includes symptoms like diarrhea, stomach cramps, and fever. Shigella also causes about 580,000 cases annually among travelers and military personnel from industrialized countries. Escherichia coli, or E. coli bacteria, are part of animal and human microbiomes, keeping the intestinal tract healthy. While most E. coli strains are harmless, some are pathogenic. E. coli strain 0157H7 causes diarrhea, cramps, and vomiting due to the release of a toxin. While you may have heard of this bacterium in the news from foodborne outbreaks, this bacterium can also be picked up from contaminated waters. What about viruses? Norovirus is a very contagious virus causing diarrhea, vomiting, and nausea. It is easily spread through contaminated waters. Norovirus is the most common cause of acute gastroenteritis in the world, causing about 1 out of every 5 cases. While all of the previous pathogens were associated with wastewater and poop, the following examples are not associated with wastewater. These organisms are naturally occurring, but can still make you sick if you swim in waters containing them. Naegleria fowleri is a free-living amoeba found in warm, fresh water around the world, like hot springs and summer lakes. When it is inhaled through the nose, like when you get water up your nose while swimming, it causes primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, or PAM, which is very deadly. This parasite is also called the brain-eating amoeba because its normal food source is bacteria, but since the brain is sterile, no bacteria, it feeds on brain cells, causing the body to have a large immune response and the brain to swell, killing its host. While PAM is rare, it is usually fatal, causing headaches and fever before death. Harmful algal blooms, or HABs, refer to the rapid growth of algae, plant-like organisms that can be harmful to people, animals, and the environment. While these algae are naturally occurring, excess nutrients from pollution can accelerate their growth and cause blooms, just like how fertilizers help plants grow on land. The environment is affected by the large blooms that block out the sunlight and cause oxygen depletion. As algae die off, their cells are broken down by bacteria, which use up the oxygen in the water, causing plants and animals to suffocate. An example of a HAB is red tide, caused by dinoflagellate Corenia brevis. Corenia brevis blooms release toxins into the air and cause respiratory issues like coughing and difficulty breathing. While algae are not a normal pathogen category, swimming and being near harmful algal bloom can make you sick. Cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae, are a type of harmful algal bloom, or HAB, that thrives during summertime. As people pump their yards full of fertilizers, nutrients are introduced to the waters as runoff and cause explosive growth of these bacteria. Cyanobacteria release cyanotoxins into the water and air, causing harm to the environment, people, and animals. The toxins cause eye, throat, and skin irritation, as well as headaches, diarrhea, and vomiting when swallowed. Now that we've learned about pathogens and harmful algal blooms, how do we come in contact with them? There are 2 main categories of sources, point or non-point, that can introduce these pathogens into the water you swim or play in. Point sources are any visible, confined, and distinct source of contamination. Some examples would be pipes, ditches, channels, wells, boats, or other floating craft from which pollutants may be discharged. An example would be a storm drain pipe discharging into a river. Non-point sources generally result from land runoff, precipitation, drainage, or seepage. This type of pollution comes from many dispersed sources and is often difficult to visually identify. An example would be stormwater or runoff naturally flowing into a river. When you come in contact with contaminated waters or those with harmful algal blooms, you can be directly or indirectly exposed to pathogens or HAB toxins. Direct contact is related to being submersed in the contaminated waters, in which the water comes into contact with your mucous membranes, like your mouth, nose, and eyes. These activities include swimming and surfing. Did you know, according to the study in 2017, on average, adults swallow about 2 tablespoons or 32 milliliters of water per hour of swimming? Children typically swallow about 4 times as much per hour. So even if you do not intend to drink the pool or beach water, you should know that most people accidentally drink the water they swim in. Indirect contact would be a less likely way to come in contact with the contaminated waters, but still, some splashes and droplets could get onto your body. For example, in the 2016 Summer Olympics, the Australian sailing team reported getting very sick from sailing in the highly contaminated waters of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. No contact is the final way of exposure, where you may be near water or inhaling sea spray or other forms of droplets in the air. Some of these activities would include sunbathing or walking near contaminated waters. Although you are much less likely to get sick from these activities, there is a chance. For example, the brevis toxin released by the red tide organism Corenia brevis can be inhaled when walking nearby water sources and cause coughing or trouble breathing. Throughout the lesson, you have seen that most of these pathogens cause gastrointestinal related illnesses or stomach problems. Ear, eye, and skin infections are also associated with swimming in contaminated waters and are caused by other pathogens. Regardless of the type, the more exposure you have to contaminated water, the more likely you are to get sick. Now that you know what a pathogen is, examples of pathogens found in recreational waters, the types of sources that can introduce these microbes, and how you can be exposed, let's learn how to prevent that from happening. Here are some things to avoid. Avoid swallowing water when swimming and playing to the best of your ability. Avoid swimming after a heavy rain. Avoid swimming at beaches next to river mouths, storm drains, or other pollution sources. And finally, avoid dirty swimming areas with trash or other signs of pollution, like oil slicks or discolored water. These pollutants can hint at the presence of pathogens or harmful algal blooms in the water. Here are some things you should do. Always wash your hands after using the bathroom, and shower before entering a pool or hot tub. Never swim with diarrhea. When accompanying children, take frequent bathroom breaks to avoid accidents. Stay home when you're not feeling well and look for no swimming signs. But if pathogens are so tiny, how do we know when beaches should be closed? More microbes. You heard that right. Microbes can be useful too. They aren't all bad. Scientists use indicator organisms to let them know if pathogens are present. While these organisms are not pathogenic themselves, their presence lets us know that pathogens could be there too. Ever since the early 1970s, the World Health Organization has supported the use of these indicator bacteria as a warning for fecal contamination in swimming waters. Now most governments use them to figure out if recreational waters are safe to swim in. One organism that is used all over the world is intestinal enterococci, or ENT. These bacteria are part of our microbiome, always living in the human and animal guts in high numbers, making them easy to find in feces. As a result, if these bacteria are found in contaminated waters, it is likely there is fecal contamination occurring. On the other hand, if the waters are free of fecal pollution, there should be fewer of these indicator bacteria in the water. Unfortunately, indicator bacteria like ENT aren't perfect indicators of the fecal pollution, because sometimes they do not correlate with pathogen presence. Since pathogens can be different types of microbes, and each type of microbe persists for different amounts of time in the environment, it is no surprise that one type of bacteria doesn't always represent viruses or parasites. Also, enterococci can live and grow in the environment, unlike viruses and parasites. Even though indicator bacteria like ENT aren't perfect indicators of unsafe swimming conditions, governments use them throughout the world to identify safe and unsafe swimming conditions at beaches, rivers, and lakes. You may be asking yourself, but why don't scientists just test for the pathogens, especially since indicator bacteria aren't perfect? That's a really good question. As you learned, there are many different types of pathogens found in recreational waters, so testing for all of them would take lots of time and money. Not to mention, it would be difficult and sometimes impossible. Indicator bacteria are very easily grown and tested for, unlike most pathogens. But how do we test for indicator bacteria? Scientists grow these bacteria on petri dishes filled with a jello-like substance called agar that holds all the nutrients the bacteria need to grow. To make sure that not all bacteria in the water grow, a special agar that only allows ENT to grow is used. Water is filtered to collect bacteria onto a special filter, and then the filter is placed on top of the agar. Since ENT live in our gut, they need a warm space to grow. So once the filter is on the agar, they are placed in an incubator that keeps them warm and toasty. After about 24 hours, it's time to see how many grew. Scientists count how many colonies are present on each plate. Since bacteria are microscopic, you must let them grow and divide repeatedly in one spot to see them with the naked eye. Colonies are the visible masses, and each colony originates from a single mother cell, or colony-forming unit, CFU. The number of colonies per volume of water tested lets scientists know if the waters are safe or not. The more colonies that are counted, the more contaminated the waters are. Typically, governments set their own threshold ENT's concentration that distinguishes safe and unsafe swimming conditions. Do you want to try counting colonies yourself? Use the worksheet to count the ENT colonies and figure out if the waters are safe to swim in. If you like this video and want to learn more about pathogens, check out the Bode Science Center website. It's a really useful source. This video was narrated and created by Mackenzie Kerr with the support of Dr. Maya Breitbart and Dr. Aaron Simmons. This work was supported by the following grants from the U.S. National Science Foundation. Any opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in the material are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the U.S. National Science Foundation. Thanks for watching!